So I think, Sina, if you're ready, we can start.
Ready,
So,
yes.
Very good. So welcome everybody to today's webinar. This webinar is specifically aimed at dealers, and we will discuss how to sell the VITO successfully. And of course, give you some tips and tricks and maybe also some new information. We will go a little bit more into detail. If there are any questions coming up during the webinar, please make sure to write them into the FAQ section in Zoom, and we will answer them by the end of the webinar. So I would, before we start, I would like to give you a quick introduction of myself. My name is Lorena and I'm working in the VITO export team for 3 years now. I'm mainly taking care of the Asian Pacific and European African region. And I would hand over to Zina also for a quick introduction.
Thank you, Lorena. Also welcome everybody from my side to today's webinar. My name is Zina. I'm with the VITO company since 9 years, and I'm currently leading the export sales team, mainly focusing for sales support on the regions of Europe and North America. Having said that, we would start with the webinar, and I'm handing over back to Lorena.
Thank you, Zina. So let's take a closer look on what we are going to discuss today. So we will give you a quick introduction into the topic. This is mainly also interesting for the new dealers that listen today. Of course, we will also talk about different influences on frying oil. This is a little bit more for background information, the economic oil usage due to frying oil testers. Also, we will discuss about our new product innovation, the VITO VL, and also with regard to that, about the VITO Connect function, which is also a very new function that we can offer. Lastly, of course, it's important for a dealer webinar to talk about the benefits with the VITO and the VITO oil management, and we will close the today's session with a Q&A part. So let's start with a quick introduction of the VITO company. The VITO company was founded in 2001 and our headquarters are in Tuttlingen, which is in the south of Germany, very close to the border to Switzerland. Meanwhile, we grew to a company with 4 subsidiaries all around the world, in Hürth, also in Cologne, close in Germany, in Chicago, in the US. Also, we have 1 subsidiary in Italy and in UAE, in Dubai. We are specialized in frying oil management. We are not only offering the VITO oil filter systems, but also the frying oil testers that we are going to talk about later. And we are very happy to say that we're the global market leader when it comes to portable oil filtration with our very innovative product. Our target customers are in the hospitality and also in the manufacturing industry, from snack bars to hotels to very big chains. Everyone who fries can use the VITO. And we distribute now in over 150 countries. So VITO is a global brand now, and we have more than 50,000 happy customers. So let's take a look on influences on frying oil. Of course, frying oil is a product that breaks down over time, that loses its quality. And there are different factors that contribute to this loss in quality. First of all, it is frying food. This is the biggest factor that affects the quality of the oil. And what is important is we can influence some of these factors with VITO as our solution. The frying of products, of course, leads to lots of particles that burn inside the oil. And by taking them out regularly and also the very fine particles, we can stretch the life of the oil. Other factors are also water, especially when we fry frozen products, but also oxygen, dust, and light. But of course, these factors are more difficult for us to influence. Lastly, it's also the frying temperature, and that's a factor that is easy to influence, as we have a recommended temperature to fry with, which is 175 degrees. Our solution is, of course, the VITO product line. As we mentioned before, we have on the one hand the oil testing devices. Here we differentiate between the VITO oil tester and also the FT440 for the measurement of the oil quality. Easy, fast, and reliable. And of course, like this, we always know when it's the right time to change our frying oil. But our main product is also the VITO oil filtration system. As you can see, it comes in different sizes to match the operation of the customers perfectly, and also in different models. We have the VITO portable filtration systems and also the mobile ones. So like this, we can adapt it to the customer's needs and also preferences. And here I would like to hand over to Zina.
Perfect. Thank you for that first overview, Lorena. I'm speaking now in a first step more in detail about the frying oil testers, and then afterwards about the VITO filtration systems. Starting with the testers, we offer two different frying oil testers to measure the quality of the frying oil. You see both here on the left side. We have the black and yellow FT440 frying oil tester and the white VITO oil tester. On the right side, you see an additional graph, exactly what Lorena spoke about. The oil has a limited period of time where you can use it perfectly for frying. At some point, you need to change it. And this is what you see in this graph quite well, from new oil to the optimal frying range to the point when the oil is exhausted and when you don't get a good product out of the oil anymore. The testers help us now to determine exactly where we are at in the oil's life cycle. Are we at the very start, in the middle, or is it maybe already time to change the oil? Big benefit for our customers is the tester gives us quantitative numbers on the quality of the oil at the top and the temperature of the oil. And this, of course, reduces any guesswork that you may have around the fryer, such as somebody's looking at the oil, smelling, tasting the oil, counting the days. With the tester, you have much more exact information when it's really time to change the oil. Quantitative numbers, of course, also allow us to document the figures, therefore have a properly filled out HACCP list, for example, that you can also provide when food controllers are coming into the business. Like this, customers know exactly when to change the oil, never too early, never too late. So you get the most out of your frying oil like that, and you ensure a good quality of your fried product as well, and lots of consistency. Any frying oil can be measured with the frying oil testers, no limitations there, and it can be very easily implemented into the operations because the testers can be used when the oil is hot at service temperature up to 175 degrees approximately. So you can use it during the day, in the morning, in the evening, whenever it fits best into the customer's operation. One last thing I haven't mentioned yet, what you see already on the graph are the colors that the testers show us, depending on the quality that they're measuring. The display, respectively the light on top of the tester, changes from green to yellow to red, like a traffic light. Green, yellow, we're in the new and optimal frying oil range. When it changes to red, like a traffic light, it's time to change the oil. And by that, everybody in the kitchen knows exactly when it's time to discard the oil. So much for the frying oil testers. Once we know when it's time to change the oil, we can of course also start taking care of the oil during the day, removing the particles that Lorena already mentioned, getting rid of this big factor of frying food that's harming the oil. We have two different groups of filtration systems that you see at the bottom. We have the portable systems, VITO 30, 50, and VITO VL. Suitable for fryers of 12, 20, and bigger than 20-liter fryers. And the mobile systems have different sizes of tanks with which you can suck the oil out of the fryer, filter it, and then return it back into the fryer. The tank sizes reach from the smallest VITO XS of around 45 liters over the medium-sized VITO XM of 75 liters to the big VITO XL with a tank of 120 liters that can be filtered at a time. We will, in this webinar, speak more about the portable units and explain exactly how the operation is working there. You see it on the picture already. You put the machine directly into the fryer to perform the filtration, and in 3-4 slides, I will explain in more detail how exactly does the process work. Benefit for the customers, once again, with the portable and also with the mobile systems, we achieve savings of up to 50% of frying oil, which on the other hand means you're doubling the lifetime of the oil just by removing the burning particles on a daily basis. They can no longer burn in the oil and therefore makes the oil last longer. Of course, we have a more consistent quality of our fried products. Once the particles are filtered out, they can no longer stick to the chicken or the fries or the fish or the vegetables, whatever your customer is frying. Therefore, better quality and overall more consistency in the quality of the fried products. And of course, less oil changes result in a reduced workload around the fryers. Nobody has to scrub the fryers every night or drain the oil in a specific way or discard it that often anymore. So this is, of course, also a big cost factor that VITO can reduce in that way. Benefit also here, you can use a VITO in hot oil, same like the frying oil tester, and therefore you can very easily implement it into the daily operations. No need to wait until the oil is cooled down or anything. You can use the VITO directly after you finished cooking and put it inside to perform the filtration. Our latest model that we just introduced end of last year is the VITO VL. Here we see a comparison between the previous model of the VITO 80 and on the right side, the very new model and product innovation that we have, which is the VITO VL, which comes with a few very exciting features, such as a filtration power of 100 liters per minute. Just to give you a bit of an example to understand that better, if a customer has a 20-liter fryer, filtration cycle that all the machines are programmed to is 4.5 minutes. A 20-liter fryer with 100 liters per minute filtration means the entire oil in the fryer is filtered 22 times overall. And this is how you can get a feeling of how fine VITO can filter, how many particles can be filtered out, big and small, to really reach those 50% oil cost savings that we say the machine can achieve for the customers. And the best part of it is it's not only filtering better than ever before, but you can also track how often it was used. So the owner of a business, a restaurant, or a hotel can remotely track at what day, what time the VITO has been used in order to ensure it has a regular usage, and in that way they can achieve the savings of half of their frying oil cost. More to that part of Wi-Fi connection and tracking later explained by Lorena. I will be now talking about how the VITO is implemented into the daily operations, how to use it, which is quite straightforward and simple. It's placed into the fryer, like you see it on the very left side. While the oil is hot, there is a minimum and a maximum level marked on the machine, but depending on what's the size of the fryer, you know exactly which machine is suitable and then fits in between min and max as well. You press the button, which is marked with start, stop, and then the filtration is done by itself. It takes 4.5 minutes. It stops automatically. Therefore, there's no supervision needed. The team in the kitchen can do something else during the VITO filtration. Benefit also here is you can literally do something else while the VITO is operating, while it's cleaning the oil, and Also, if the fryers are particularly dirty, for example, during the day, this is a very, very quick in-between filtration as well that can be performed, for example, after a very busy lunch session or after a very busy afternoon session, for example. This takes these 4.5 minutes. After the filtration is done and the VITO has stopped its performance automatically, we can take the machine out and filter all the remaining fryers one after the other. Once that's completed, you see in the third picture, the VITO is stored in a drip tray. That's for storage or for transporting the machine somewhere else, because of course it's still wet from the oil it has been filtered in. And once it's time to change the filter paper inside the VITO machine, you can dismantle the unit, take the motor part off and run the rest either through the dishwasher or wash the machine in the sink together with soap or washing detergent. What exactly is a VITO doing inside the fryer to really do those multiple filtrations to really get all those particles out, as I was describing? Here in those two pictures, you see the so-called VITO effect, how we call that, or it's a little bit like a washing machine effect. There's a rotor at the bottom of the VITO, which creates a circulation in the fryer, pulling up all the oil with the particles, pushing it through the filter paper, which sits in front of the VITO. The filter catches the particles, and then the clean oil gets pushed out in front of the VITO. And then this happens for the duration of 4.5 minutes. So the entire oil in the entire fryer is filtered multiple times through the bottom, through the filter paper, and then coming back out in the front. So much for that, how VITO is working. Now Lorena will speak about some more details that we have prepared.
Thank you, Zina. So as you can see in those pictures, we have lots of different examples. And first of all, to say is there's an optimal VITO unit for every initial situation in the kitchen. We have VITO in different sizes, in different models, and also we have different accessories that help to perfectly install the VITO, depending on the backgrounds there. So let's take a closer look on the first two pictures. We can see VITO in a countertop and also in a freestanding fryers. These two pictures are very common in, for example, European countries, less used in the Asian region. If we look at the ventless fryer, this is very common in cinemas or in supermarkets that don't have a kitchen inside. That's just a smaller fryer, but also VITO is fitting here. The pressure fryer is another option that might occur in a kitchen. It is often used for the preparation of chicken, for example. At the bottom on the left, we can see a flat bottom fryer. As we can see, we can place VITO directly on the floor without any problems, and it can perfectly create the circulation also in those type of fryers. Woks and kettles, this is very common, especially in Asian countries. And as we can see, the small VITO 30 unit can also perfectly be placed in the middle of the wok. A cooking center is also a fryer that is not only used for frying, but also for cooking. That's also no problem. And last but not least, a big food production where you fry in a bigger volume. In this case, we recommend the mobile VITO units. Oftentimes, this is also the preference of the customers. They can externally filter all the oil. Maybe you can also use it for transportation if needed. And of course, it can be pumped back as clean oil. So let's talk more in detail about the VITO Connect function that Zina already mentioned that comes along with our new VITO VL unit. But why is it needed? What are our initial challenges? The VITO Connect function is very useful for major customers with more than one VITO in use. Of course, if you have multiple stores, multiple restaurants, the monitoring is very difficult. You can't stay in all the kitchens at the same time, but you still want to log the usage of it. It's very untransparent at times. So we need to find a solution for that. Of course, also the error analysis is more difficult if we have an untransparent situation, and the unreliable use of the VITO unit might also threaten the quality of our products. We want to make sure that VITO is used frequently and that we can take the maximum out of our quality and of course also of our costs. And last but not least, communication of the usage is also very time consuming. So how can VITO Connect help us to solve all these problems? First of all, we have a very transparent cost control. We can protect our investment into the VITO unit by making sure it pays back as quick as possible. With the regular usage of the VITO devices. We can, of course, also assure our profitability of the machine, and we can also track our amortization by receiving the reports at the end of the month, for example, or at the end of the week that show us how much oil we already saved. Second part is also the analysis. We have a digital monitoring. These are information that we can trust. And of course, we can also increase the efficiency in the kitchen like this. It is also effective when it comes to error analysis. If we wonder why we don't save as much oil as we would like to, this will also help us. And lastly, it also helps us with optimization in all parts. We can individually control the VITO usage in every restaurant. And of course, also we can check the quality, that we make sure the oil is in a perfect condition. And a very good benefit is that we can configure the VITO to our specific needs. We can adjust the timing, we can adjust how long the VITO should run. So this is also a big advantage. On the next slide, we can see such a report that we will be sent at the end or by the time we want it. We can see how many cycles we already realized, how much oil we saved. Of course, very important, how much money we also saved on oil cost, and also the CO2 emissions that we saved. By having those reports, we have a very good, easy to understand overview, which is also very helpful when it comes to monitoring how the VITO is used. So let's summarize the VITO Connect function. First of all, it is very useful when it comes to SOP control. We have a transparent usage. We have reports at the end or at the time we want to receive them. We can protect our investment by easily tracking the regular usage of VITO, and not to forget, digitalization in the kitchen is also the future. The future in kitchen is smart, and with VITO Connect, we already make a big step towards the future there.
Perfect. Thank you, Lorena. Having heard all the information now about VITO Connect and how widely the VITO finds application, I will be now speaking on this slide of why it is beneficial to offer the VITO product line to your customers and how you can benefit from that overall. We've summarized some few points on here. The frying oil management with VITO has, like I said, a very wide application for different fryers as well as different customers. Lorena has shown us the different applications with VITO. It really reaches from big production fryer to a wok or a pressure fryer in the chicken. So whatever your customers are producing in their kitchen, in their fryers, VITO has a solution for them. In order to evaluate the potential with a customer, it's very important to find out what's their current frying oil consumption, either by how many oil changes do they currently have per week, per month, how much are they spending on frying oil, how many liters or pounds are they currently consuming on frying oil. So this gives a first overview, and then in order to determine which VITO model is the correct one, we just look at the size of the fryer. You've seen the different models that we've shown. Is a customer maybe using a very small fryer, then the VITO 30 fines application, or is the customer using a 120-liter fryer, then the VITO XL, the biggest model, fines application. And this is how you can look into the spec sheets of the machine and then know exactly which one suits the fryer of the customer. And then, of course, most importantly, which is not listed on the slide here, I just realized, but I would like to mention it anyways, comparing what are the current oil changes with VITO compared to what is the model that's suitable, respectively the price, and then transferring that into 50% frying oil cost saving gives us, of course, the most important argument towards the customer for his or her return on investment of the machine. So this is the main pro argument for VITO. How quickly is the VITO paying for itself? And that, of course, depends heavily on how much is the customer currently consuming on frying oil, and how is their frying oil price moving at the moment. Is it more on the cheaper side, frying oil, or is the frying oil price increasing for the customer? And like this, you can calculate the payback period quite quickly. Normally, if a customer has a frying oil consumption bigger than 25 liters per week, approximately, depends a bit on the country, we're reaching a feasible return on investment, and VITO is worth an investment for a customer, because then we're normally reaching a payback period of less than 12 months or less than 12 months. This is just for having a bit of a rule of thumb to understand that. And nowadays, a lot of customers use more than 25 liters of oil a week. VITO has over 50,000 customers worldwide. This is already what we explained earlier. We're the market leader in portable frying oil filtration, and therefore have a very wide market and customer know-how as well, from which our partners, our business partners, our kitchen equipment supply dealers can, of course, also benefit. We have very well-known customers. I will show you a few in 1 or 2 slides just to understand which testimonials you can go to the customer in order to offer the VITO machines. VITO is a USP product, a unique selling proposition product, very much a niche product as well. Nevertheless, it has those 3 major benefits of the oil cost savings, of the quality of the frying oil, and of course, of the less workload around the fryers. And then, of course, the argument with the return on investment is, of course, specifically at the moment for many customers, the main argument why to invest in VITO and long-term return their investment back. Specifically, if now they can check how often the machine was used, so they're in full control basically on how often are their VITO machines used in the fryer. As a dealer, we have a sustainable after-sales business offer as well. If a customer is happy and if the customer is trained well, if they know how to use the VITO and use it on a regular basis, they will have to buy filters on a regular basis as well. Therefore, sustainable after sales, as well as we offer different additional accessories, what Lorena already mentioned earlier. That can be a holder for the wall to position the VITO inside. That can be cleaning tabs to boil out the fryer. That can be the oil tester if the customer didn't buy it in a package initially. So there's different opportunities to use the VITO as a door opener to sell additional products afterwards as well. Like I said, customer satisfaction pays off in the filter sales, and we're giving the opportunity of having a very close customer contact through trainings, through new updates as well, which we believe is very important. When customers are satisfied, we work a lot with testimonials. So one happy customer is referring to a fellow customer or potential fellow customer, where we can then, of course, also offer VITO. And last but not least, a big benefit for brand representatives and kitchen equipment suppliers, of course, also is the VITO brand is very well presented in the global markets, on trade shows, for example, in online marketing, in social media. You have a first glimpse here on the presentation. The colors are quite understanding and has a good brand recognition with the logo as a drop and with the black and yellow colors as well. So much for those benefits. Now I want to head back to the benefits of the products once again and summarize them. I'm starting with the oil tester to recap that once again. Benefit with the frying oil tester for the customers is to maintain a good quality of the fried product, to change the oil never too early, never too late, only when necessary. Due to the traffic light, green, yellow, and red, there is a clear color indication of when it is necessary to change the oil. Multiple fryers can be measured one after the other. All can happen in hot frying oil as well. And if you remember what I mentioned about the food controllers, due to the numbers that the tester is measuring, they can be easily documented in an HACCP list that you see listed here on the right side. All frying oils can be measured, so there's no limitations to any type of frying oil. Benefits with the VITO oil filter system with the filtration machines are the increased lifetime of the frying oil. As we mentioned earlier already, you can double the lifetime of the oil by removing all those burning particles. We have an improved quality and taste of the fried products, once again, because the particles are filtered out. Very easy and fast handling of the machine. Position it into the hot fryer, press the button, and let it do its job by itself. The usage can be tracked, what Lorena explained, through VITO Connect, and the filtration itself takes exactly 4.5 minutes to clean the oil. Therefore, less cleaning effort all over the fryers. We have a daily clean frying oil, less labor as well, because we're reducing the frying oil changes, less disposal costs as well, and therefore an active environment protection. And this is a point I would like to point out here. Once again, the reduction of the carbon footprint is something that VITO, of course, also is doing its part in by filtering the oil on a regular basis. Customers reduce their frying oil consumption. And this really goes back to less frying oil consumption results in less frying oil, less transportation costs, less harvesting, less area that we need, less storage spaces that we need as well. So it goes all the way back in the supply chain, and by using VITO, customers can reduce their carbon footprint as well. Here are some customers that already understood the benefits that they have with VITO and successfully use VITO globally already. And these are, of course, some of the names that our partners can also use in order to promote VITO to any other potential businesses. We have testimonials available from them. We have video testimonials available from some of them as well. You see here, once again, based on what Lorena explained earlier, different applications, different size fryers, different operations, different products. We really reach from furniture suppliers such as IKEA and XXX Lutz to hotel chains such as Hilton and Sheraton, casual dining like Hard Rock Cafe, of course, also fast food chains like Burger King. So the range is very, very wide, and the opportunities are very big that we can tackle with VITO. So much for that. We hope you got a good overview on the VITO, on the oil tester, on the application, on the additional important benefit of VITO Connect in today's webinar. And if you have any questions, we would get started with the questions and answers session now. So I'm handing back to Lorena.
Yes, thank you, Zina. So we already received a question in our FAQ part. I will quickly read it for you. It refers to the frying of donuts. So the particles suspended in the frying tank are very fine, causing filter paper to choke almost immediately. Is there any solution for this, or should we recommend one paper for single use only in this case?
I can take this this question, and then you can add if you have anything else, Lorena. Donuts, of course, is a very particular case. Normally, there is a lot of flour or sugar in the oil. Therefore, these are very fine particles. It depends very much which VITO model you're currently using with the customer. Depending on the size of the fryer, our suggestion normally would be the VITO VL or one of the mobile units. Therefore, the filter paper is a little bit more stretched and doesn't block that quickly. It depends very much how many fryers the customer is using in order to see how long one filter paper can last. On average, we get multiple usages out of one filter paper that ranges from 6 up to 12 filtrations, depending, of course, how many particles are in the oil. So in that particular case, with flour, with sugar, I think it would be good if we in detail review once again, how does the fryer exactly look like? How do the particles exactly look like? And then see how long can one filter paper last? Because our target, of course, is to use it for multiple times, not just one time. And I'm sure with the right operation, maybe positioning of the VITO, maybe switching the model, we can for sure use the filter paper at least for a day, if not longer, for multiple fryers. So we would like to revisit that once again in detail.
Yes, I have nothing to add here. Just that the VITO VL unit, our new unit, is now a lot stronger and more powerful. And talking from our experience now, we did, of course, lots of trials in the last months. The VITO VL unit is also very powerful when it comes to overcoming those type of difficulties. When we're having lots of flour inside the oil and very fine particles that seem to clog the filter quickly, the VITO VL unit helps us to keep the pressure high and fill the box completely.
By the way, this is maybe also another quite common application. What was mentioned here with donuts many times also happens with fried chicken. And also there we really see how, yes, the filter paper is blocked at some point, but the pressure inside the machine, like Lorena said, is high enough to still filter oil through. There's no more oil coming then out in front. This is very important to know and to realize. Yes, the filter paper is blocked, but the side filtration, if you have a close look at the VITO VL, we can also share there the spec sheet once again, continues on the side, and it's filling up the box with the flour and with the very fine particles. So these are good examples where the VITO VL is performing very, very well.
Very good. So we have another question regarding the usage of VITO VL with frying oil cleaning powders like Magnesol. Is it possible to use both in combination?
I can also take this question. Certainly, it is possible to combine the VITO with an additive to filter the oil. We've also done tests on that. Nevertheless, you will not have a better result on the filtration if you use VITO with or without Magnesol. So it doesn't make a difference in the filtration result. Of course, it's a double cost factor in the end. If it's important for a customer, they can, of course, keep doing that. But for the filtration itself, for the savings, for the quality of the fried product, it's not necessary to use an additive for the VITO filtration. Therefore, the filter paper is fine enough, and the pressure that the machine is creating is also high enough that it doesn't need an additional support to filter.
Very good. So I would read out the next question. What's the cooling time for VITO mobile units? This in the case that the unit has to be moved from restaurant to restaurant in a food court.
This is a very good question. It takes, depends on how much frying oil was, of course, filtered. If you filled up the machine completely with hot frying oil and then return it back, it obviously takes longer than if it's just filled half. I'd say around 15 to 20 minutes you can calculate with until the machine is cooled down. Depends a bit on the surrounding temperature as well, I guess, Lorena.
Yeah. And also, I feel like when you use the VITO mobile unit, it's not heating up that you cannot touch it. This is never the case. So it is always in a condition where it is okay to, for example, move it around.
Oh.
Okay, great. We have another question in the chat. Is the position in the fryer important?
Always. So the positioning inside the fryer is important to a degree. First of all, if there's any grids or holes or anything else in the fryer that can somehow block the circulation, we have to take these things out, first of all. And then related to the positioning, since the VITO is creating that circulation that we explained earlier, we of course want to position the VITO over the deepest point inside the fryer. That's not necessarily, watching straight forward. The machine behind me, you see, is a little bit at, I don't know, 25, 30 degrees shifted to one side in order to position it more stable over the deepest point. It can also stand just watching the wall for filtration. We also had scenarios before where you turn the VITO 180 degrees around. So you just see the back of the VITO because then the rotor sits stable over the deepest point. There's different options there. So the positioning certainly matters also to reach the bottom of the fryer. That's an important factor. And in gas fryers, they come around a lot in North America, but I believe also a bit in Europe. Many times there's 2 burners on one side, then there is a big gap, and then there's 1/3 burner on the other side. So the VITO always stands in between that bigger gap. So 2 burners, VITO, and then 1 more. So it sits way to the left or to the right, depending on how the fryer is built. So not in the middle.
We have an addition to the question, which is in case you can hang it somewhere.
Yeah, if you can hang it somewhere, the same topic applies as well. You try to hang it over the deepest point as well. Sometimes you can hang it directly in the back of the fryer and create a sufficient circulation. If that's not possible, we offer also frames that you can attach to the fryer together with a hook or with a bracket that you can attach to the back of the VITO, so you can hang the VITO into the fryer and then shift it accordingly to the left or to the right, or maybe also turn it around in order to have it positioned over the deepest point in the fryer where the biggest circulation and filtration also happens. And here benefit, of course, also is when you can hang the machine into the fryer or you have to hang it inside, you can always vary the height as well, which the VITO sits on, so you can see exactly how does the circulation get stronger or weaker depending on the height. And then you can try that, of course, out with the customers, how the movement in the fryer works best overall.
And of course, the VITOs also have the maximum and minimum level where the oil level should be in between. And if it's not possible to install the VITO somewhere between those levels, it is useful to apply one of those accessories in addition. Very good. So there are no more questions for now. Okay, we just received another one. Our customers have problems with the cornflakes from the crispy with the portable models. How can we fix this problem because the oil cannot pass through the filter? Thank you.
This is also a good question. Cornflakes, I guess that's from crispy chicken or the batter of crispy chicken. Also here, we should review once again in detail which model is currently in usage. Also here, heavy recommendation for the VITO VL, because first of all, any cornflakes or bigger flakes or bigger particles in general get crushed at the bottom of the VITO through the rotor, so they can easily be filtered out. And besides that, I don't see an additional problem. So flakes, bigger crispy particles in the oil normally don't have a negative effect on the filtration itself. If the VITO machine that's used is big enough, strong enough, and what we already just spoke about, the positioning of the VITO is correct. So it can really catch those particles as well. One more important point here to big particles, flakes or whatever it may be. Of course, it's a general recommendation for customers if there's particles at the surface of the oil during the day. We of course recommend to skim that off on a regular basis with just a skimmer that they normally have next to the fryer or with a ladle to just maintain the surface of the fryer clean, because once the particles come to the surface, the chances that they get filtered out with VITO can happen, but does not necessarily happen. We're more focusing really on the particles that are inside the oil, not the ones that are on top of the oil.
Very good. I have nothing to add there. So maybe we just wait some more minutes. Maybe there's some new questions coming up. Just maybe to quickly mention here, of course, all the participants receive their personal certificate after the webinar, and you can also see our contact information at the last slide. So if there are any questions coming up later on, you can of course also feel free to contact us there.
Especially because I think there are some questions that go very much in detail or into specific customer scenarios as well. So of course, after the webinar, we'll also take the time to go through those challenging customers or challenging operations with you as well to make the right suggestions of which machine, which model, which positioning, and what else is important for the VITO usage if it's not that straightforward, but a bit of a different operation from customer side. I think these were all the questions for today, Lorena.
Please send us a copy of the presentation. Yeah, we will do so afterwards. Very good. So I think we can come to an end here. We want to thank you all for your participation in today's webinar. We received another last question. Okay, we will of course also answer this one. For a chicken wing restaurant, how many times should I filter?
And also a good question, depends of course very much on the volume. Normally chicken restaurants are quite busy. So I assume now in your business the chicken production is quite busy. Peak times, maybe lunch and dinner. So we suggest to filter after those peak hours. If it's morning and evening or afternoon and evening, when the fryers are most dirty, this is when we recommend to do the filtration. And of course, just if you imagine if you have a busy lunch and a busy dinner and you have a lot of particles in the oil after the lunch production, they of course keep burning during the entire afternoon until you also finish then in the evening. So if you have a chance to filter in between, that's of course what we would recommend for specifically for chicken production, but very fine particles as well, and lots of particles in the fryer. So with the assumptions that I made, I'd say 2 filtrations a day would be recommended.
Yeah. Another question regarding the oil tester. Can customers adjust the tester based on their standard or just keep its original setting?
It's also a good question, something that I did not mention earlier on the black and yellow FT440. It is possible to set up different settings on very, very special types of frying oils. I'm speaking now about coconut oil, for example. That's more out of the ordinary frying oil that does not fall into the standard settings of the frying oil tester. I'm sorry. So in the instruction of the frying oil testers at the very end, you can see which adjustments you can possibly make to those specific types of frying oils, or of course also consult with us, and then we can help you set them up. But there's just a very small handful of frying oils where we would really recommend to change the settings. On all other frying oils, you can maintain the factory settings the way they are. If the tester is somehow showing weird numbers supposedly for the customer, you can of course consult with us, and then we can give you a recommendation how to possibly change the settings. But this is the case in 1 out of 100 customers, I'd say, maybe less.
Yeah, so the question had a second part also now. The customer is using normal vegetable oil and wanted to lower down the starting reading and higher red reading. Is that fine?
On a vegetable oil, it's certainly not necessary to change the settings of the tester. So you can maintain it the way it is. You can, of course, lower the start value. You can, of course, higher the red value as well. In the end, it has to go along with the country's regulation. So it is possible, technically it's possible on the tester. The setting is also quite simple to make. So we can share that with you. But of course, some countries have very strict regulations on frying oil quality. So there I would not recommend to do things like that. Some countries also have very strict food controllers as well. I would also not recommend it there. There's always, of course, a bit of a tolerance. If this is 1, 2, 3% points, I think it's fine in that particular case. But of course, the tester is there to support us in knowing when to change the oil and not trying to stretch the oil life longer than it's supposed to be. So this is something that has to certainly go along with the country's regulations when the oil has to be changed.
Very good. So if there are any last questions, you can also just contact us through our email or our phone number, or later on when we're sending you the presentation and of course your certificate. So I would say we come to an end here. I want to thank you for your attention, and we're looking forward to keep our discussions now and keep in touch with you. Of course, if there are any questions, we are always happy to support you.
Thank you also very much from my side for your participation today. We look forward to working with you. And of course, if there's any more questions, feel free to let us know. And we look forward to welcoming you as well in one of our upcoming next webinars that we do on a regular basis. We wish you a nice afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.